Thank you very much, Macarena, and let's then begin our webinar. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Thank you once again for coming. Another webinar, another Thursday, as usual. Thank you for coming. So today we're just gonna check one request that I had, maybe not the most popular, but very interesting for those of you who will use the assembly process, which is, so to speak, when you need to sell items that will be combined as one. Nevertheless, it's not a full manufacturing process. Some ideas sometimes I would be in the food industry or retail, so to speak, preparing what they call kits. In the wholesale process, we might call them just packages, where we just, or license plates that we just need to take items from different items that will be then assembly, right? Light manufacturing, another way of seeing it, and so forth, right? Just to get into the general idea, so to speak. Now, I'm going to show you, this is my company hardware depot, right? This might be the most usual type of processes that will be prepared for these or type of items where we are going to assemble these spare parts and so forth in order to prepare one single item. So that's why I use this one, but it's up to you. The idea is that we are going to need a list of components. So let's just take a look here in this company. By the way, I have some hardware items, right? Electronics, pipes, and so forth. So we need to build, right? We are going to build maybe in a project, right? We're going to provide maintenance, or well, maybe as well we can sell these spare parts. But once in a while, what I need to do is just, I have an example of one solar system kit where I'm going to be using a solar structure that I can as well sell separately, a solar wafer, right, and so forth. So I have some items that will be used for me to prepare and install later a complete solar system. What I'm not going to include or mention today will be the assembly or the field services process where I'm going to send people. That will be another type of procedure. But the first thing that I will be needing to implement, if you want to go with this, is just a simple bill of materials that I need to prepare, because in the end I'm going to send it, and then later you can add other ideas, other processes. So yes, first of all, I have a complete solar system. Let me show you what this item is about. Any given item that I prepare might require, of course, a unit of measure, the item category. We have all of this in Business Central. And we have different type of items. Some of them are inventory, meaning that I can count them, transfer items between warehouses. And of course, this type of items can be then assembled, right? Then we have others like service and non-inventory, which might be more or less related to the idea of that I won't be counting these items, right? But then later you can think that even accounting it might be quite different, because in inventory I need to know in value how many units I have in this warehouse and how many physical quantities as well I have. So very good. In first place, I can see that in quantity on hand, I only have got one. Not good for my warehouse or my selling process, because lately I have been selling this one. And I discovered that instead of just a purchase and resell this type of very complex item, would be really good for me to just assemble it in my own warehouse, since I have discovered that it's not that difficult in the end, right? Another idea for kits would be not only for electronics, of course, but you can just simply combine 2-3 different items, put them in a box, and voila, that's as well the same idea that I will be presenting. So what are the characteristics of this type of item? Apart from a regular information that I'm presenting, of course, it has a unit cost, and as well it has a price, right? Very good. So the idea is that, yes, I can purchase and sell this item. Let me just give you an example. First of all, this item that I have just created, you need to create one item that is going to be in the end your kit. So I have added in the description that this is the complete solar system kit. So 2 words that are telling me that this is a kit. Complete And this kit is as well then telling me, hey, you might have components behind this. As well, if you want to start maybe designing this type of items, we have the attribute section. So here in the attributes, I might add that this might be my own brand, maybe, right? So this is Optimus brand, the color, the material description, model, however you want to, then a complete information. And why not, you could create your own type of description that I am creating just right now, that this is just then the kit, and this is well a bill of materials, right? Just add any descriptions, demo, right? Of course, this will be then added for sales. I'm just adding a general description where I will be mentioning the characteristics of the kit, promotional kit, own branded, and so forth. And then you can add any other type of information in this area where I have other type of attributes, the depth, the width, the height. So you get the idea of the attributes. It's very important that you learn some specific processes we have in this system, so you can actually use them, and also for other items, this will be available. I will be mentioning you then when I'm gonna go to add some components, which will be the idea. Now here is then once again the complete solar system, and I just want to show you that we as well can prepare and show our own information in lists. Not only to have those beautiful pictures, right? But as well sometimes more is feasible to find items by looking at the description, not the picture specifically, the substitutes, and look at this. I have one single column that is telling me, hey, look at this item, complete solar system kit. It has an assembly BOM. And this is a specific feature that we're gonna show today, apart from only the regular characteristics and features of any given item. This is a unique feature to prepare the kit. It contains components, parts, or is just an assembly, a bill of materials, right? And then we get in our own item card one specific, what we call policy, by the way. It's just a general word of how do you actually supply the item for yourself, or that's called as well replenishment, right? We can as well replenish customers and so forth, but that's another type of process that will be called demand. Then, in this case, how do you replenish for yourself this item? Do you purchase it? That will be normally what we would do with all the items, unless we actually are just a factory. And then for that, we have a production order. So whenever you need to sell an item and you're going to be measuring the parts as well, you need to have all the spare parts, because even if one component is missing, that will be then something that will be problematic for you. And then we have the assembly, which is, so to speak, a lighter version of the production process, where we're going to have machinery, we're going to have people, technicians, operators, and so forth. Assembly could be more or less related to have somebody with maybe some training in the warehouse, right? But in the warehouse can be completely fully done with by anybody to then gather the components, go through the warehouse, take the items that I need to prepare, then this complete solar system kit, right? And then use what we call, I'm going to show it in a moment, an assembly order, just to say I'm going to consume some items, but in the end, I'm going to get a finished product. And that's it. It's very easy then to prepare an assembly order. We just need to set up the item with the actual policy for doing that. Now, I'm going to go and review what type of information is behind this type of items that I call them the kit, or it has an assembly BOM as well. It could be called then a package, right? Or a combo, right? In the retail industry, they are very, very creative in order to just continue selling. So this item assembly then as well has some different setups that I could use. The assembly BOM, They calculate assembly BOM standard cost and calculate unit price. And look at this, how in Business Central we differentiate the assembly to what is a production characteristics or setup. Once again, this is manufacturing, okay? Quite complex, but in the end, right, more or less used with lines and routes, right, to prepare just one item. And maybe formulas, subcomponents, and then the subcomponents will be creating a final piece and so forth. This is when you have only the assembly BOM is you already have and purchase the items. You don't need to follow any complexity or additional processes. Just have the physical items in their warehouse and then mention in a list what are the actual structures of these items. Let's just verify. Okay, this is what we call the assembly BOM. Is the structure of the previous item we show, where I have added 1, 2, 3, 4 components. Okay, it's just that I know that in order to prepare this item, I might be assembling, maybe having the technician preparing this structure, right? Maybe it's not a problem, but not that complex. The solar wafers are already there. We just assembly, take us 10, 20 minutes, and these two will be ready. But it is important that these are my components, and then how many you are gonna need in order to prepare one single unit of the kit mentioned. Okay, so from here, the type of a structure is going to help us to add different type of items, and as well, maybe somebody is going to be here, a person that will be then preparing the assembly process. So we have 4 people: Catherine, Linda, Martin, and Cherry. The last webinar we talk about a little the resources. What are the resources? Because we talk about project management. In Business Central, we can use as well our resource, which is a person or a machine that you could add to this bill of materials that is going to add some time. Let's say Catherine Hall needs to work here just maybe 0.5 hours, so to speak. And as well, if you don't like this measurement of hours, you can create your own unit of measure where you could add maybe, okay, this would be minutes, okay, but 1 hour, right, actually is going to contain, well, actually, in this case, because I have added already an hour, but a minute currently contains, or is about 1 hour, okay? 1 hour contains 60 minutes, just like this, okay? I'm just making a single setup. I'm not gonna be allowed because I already have one base unit of measure. This is what we call, okay? But let's say that we are going to add then 1 hour, currently has 60 minutes, okay? That will be the setup that we are gonna need to add here for every resource. It depends on how you want to measure this. Sometimes it's really, really precise, but in my case, I don't really care about being really precise, so I can add just 0.5 hours. Of course, this has one drawback that I don't always like regarding the measurements, because I will be managing decimal numbers, places. Why? Because in the end, this is not the best structure. So I always recommend for the unit of measure, use the smallest one that helps you do not manage decimal places, okay? But for me, 0.5 hours is not really that hard to manage by the system, all right? Different thing is if you need to add seconds and 3.5 minutes, okay, well, how you measure that in hours, okay? So I strongly recommend you to actually work with the proper unit of measures for not only items, but as well for, look at this, their resource. If you haven't seen or really understand what the resource is, let me just show you. It just take me 1 minute because we are analyzing everything about this edition of the item, what is needed to have this item assembly. And the resource is Catherine Hall. She's a person, but we could add a machine if we're going to use it. And then the base unit of measure, what I was talking about, is the hour. Based on that, we have a direct unit cost per 1 hour. The unit cost that I have been using, indirect cost if needed. Indirect cost is something that will be, so to speak, an expense. Apart from the actual cost, maybe I always charge 10% because in the end she might be traveling always to the on-site or something like that, right? And then you get the profit measurement. Apart from that, then as well, I can measure the capacity of this person. I just need to add the personal general data and so forth, right? Then this is, so to speak, a component like an item that you're going to need, you can purchase, and you can sell. In other words, this is more or less a service, right? That will be the idea. But normally, this as well is another entity that helps me as well, of course, because with the resource card as well, I could maybe measure the skills. I have a picture, the resource locations where she's working in main warehouse, if you create an assembly warehouse and so forth, right? And not only that, but you can plan, and please look at our previous webinar, the 4 projects, because you can add capacity, how many hours she can work through a day. That this doesn't happen with any item. An item, you just use it, a service, you just use it, but you don't have the measurement in terms of how many hours you can work on a daily basis. Okay, so that would be more or less the idea of the resource. And coming back to my bill of materials, I have added as an example, Catherine. With this, you are going to then need to have and calculate. The system is going to tell you what will be the value. And when we are going to be planning items, and we are not depending only on the vendor cost, but as well, you need to then roll up all the costs for this item together. We are going to calculate, we have a function to calculate the unit cost for this item that we call the calculate standard cost function. Where I have just clicked on that, and actually it gave me this standard cost for this item that we can see here. This helps you then later to have a comparison between the real cost. Cost is when you purchase, right? We're going to be purchasing this to the vendors, and I'm going to explain you how you then later need to cost this, but at least for today, we are going to handle this cost, because you need to more or less understand, okay, if this is my standard cost, the planified cost, in other words, that actually took the cost of all of these components, just roll them up, and then I will summarize, in other words, and then we are going to have the unit price, and as well for that, we have another function that is going to take all the prices of all the different components that are in this list, and by clicking on the calculate unit price function, we are going to just be able to calculate the price planned. So then you can use this base actually to start selling the item. But from here, of course, you can just change this selling price to get more profit, to start measuring. This is what we do normally in the manufacturing world. We work normally in retail or wholesaling industries, right? But when we do this type of items, we strongly recommend to start planifying the items with the actual cost that you currently have. And then once the system gives you these calculations, the second step would be just to review the cost shares. So you can see more or less in one chart, so to speak, or just by analyzing the contribution of the cost of your people with the items, with the components that you have. Let me show you this small chart, because we might be adding different type of components, and this is, so to speak, the idea of what they do in the manufacturing world. So they can see the item 1017 actually is contributing more to the cost of this item. We can see this in the bar chart. And then resource Catherine. Okay, in this case, actually, she is currently adding some cost, of course, with the 30 minutes that she dedicates, or 0.5 hours that she dedicates to assembly the items, maybe with the screw and with all different manual tools very fast. Even she could just put them in a box, and that will be as well an assembly. So I'm just trying to give you the idea that this will be quite easy. And then you need to show this to your accountants as well, because you're going to be measuring material and the labor added. Labor goes to another GL account, and the material inventory goes to another GL account, and so forth. So this is a regular analysis, and we can then give you more explanation about the costing process. Okay, for now it's just not actually costing, but you need to somehow check the analysis and look at this. In order to prepare a complete solar system, this is the actual material amount or the price that it cost me to actually have in the end this one single unit. Okay, and then I have one specific capacity. I'm gonna need all this time, okay, 38.5 minutes in my case. And then because I added that I need 30 minutes or 0.5 hours plus an indirect cost, 3.5. Okay, so this is a capacity overhead. And in the end, these costs actually are going to sum to have one total. Okay, not complicated for this type of items, to be sure. This will be more complicated when we go with the real manufacturing process, more complex with machinery, with routes, with different formulas, versions, and so forth. Okay, then coming back to our item, we could see different level, the bomb, the first bomb, okay, and then including more details. And if you want just a single level or roll up the item, so different presentations for the same chart, and the same information will be then just presented to you. But sometimes it will be important for me to start, when I just start designing, actually see then which items will be here, the cost of the materials, the cost of gathering. If you have maybe 2-3 people preparing your item in a very small assembly line, so you're gonna need to measure the capacity. Okay, and this is then as well with more detailed information how you're gonna then get this analysis just automated. So the cost, the price is calculated so you can planify it easily, and then as well you can see then what will be the requirement in order to present now what we're gonna call the parent item. Okay, so the item that I'm presenting you is a parent from now on, and then we're gonna have some child items. Okay, that with that idea. So nothing else to say. This is more or less the process, and not only this type of a design can be done here. This is just a small type of process. So this is the assembly process once again. Maybe 10 components at most, but as well you prepare a kit. What other type, if you are in the tourism industry, maybe the swimsuit you're gonna sell that with another component together, 3 components, right? Maybe as well the towel together with the swimsuit and so forth, right? Swimsuit. And then all of them could be just added here as a list, and that's an assembly mode. That's it. It's not really complex. It's super easy. Just continue adding them, and that will be it, right? So this is the kit, the complete solar system. I just added a few components, and the good thing about this is that it helps me to planify. It helps me to verify the cost. Okay, next. What about the real? Because I have already planified. It looks so good. Okay, the unit price is here, and then the standard cost is here. Look at this, is quite grayed out, and so let me maxify a little. 1,364 will be my cost planified. So before going to actually prepare the assembly process, you're gonna get the analysis, and you need them to understand that that was only planified. We call it the standard cost. If you always want to use that planified cost, please change your costing method to standard, because currently it's FIFO. And what will be the difference there? So we have the FIFO, which is first in, first out, and then we have LIFO, specific average. I don't have time to actually make examples of each one. So FIFO would be, okay, I'm gonna purchase, your vendor is going to increase the cost. always, right? Maybe you can do agreements with the vendor, don't take it wrong, don't overcomplicate stuff, right? But normally, yeah, when we use FIFO, you will be saying that you will be, of course, make the system, right, verify that if your vendor increases the cost of any given component, then let's make Business Central actually and increase as well the cost of the item for me, okay, automatically. But for that, I would strongly then recommend that as well, you use another pricing method, okay? That will be calculate the price, the cost, using the cost plus the profit that I actually configure, okay? And here you're going to be able to add, of course, 58 is a lot, maybe 10, okay? And Business Central can help you with that, all right? If you don't have time, actually. If you don't have the time, you have plenty of different items, 20,000 items, so you don't have the time to actually, but this is so complex and it has different components that in the end, what I don't want, and I would advise is that at least if you don't use the automation, just come and review that, because in the reality, Business Central is going to give you the actual unit cost. So every time that you purchase the components, look at this. I have prepared the assembly one. I mean, I have purchased some of these items that create an assembly output, and the real cost of this was 680. Okay, this is the real cost, so it was so cool. Okay, even though I planified the items, maybe the purchaser did a great job, and he did a good negotiation for the components that I was going to purchase. So I'm going to have, in other words, the real cost and the planified cost. Okay, so what I will be then recommend, or in order to understand what is the actual costing method, FIFO or standard, which one I should be using. Okay, this will be more related to cost accounting that I don't have enough time to go through that today. I'm going to check just a little, but to explain it easily, okay, if you use the standard cost, what the system is going to do is just always use your planned cost, the cost that we calculated before, which is here 1,364. This is my planified cost, okay? This is what I did just a few minutes ago. I'm going to use it, and then later I'm going to use then my unit price, which as well was then created by the system, calculated by me, verified. This is the cost. You can edit it here. But from the accounting perspective, you're going to have one GL account in your income statement to measure the planified cost, and another cost related, another GL accounting process, right, from where we're going to be saving your real cost whenever you purchase. And what happened in the end with the standard costing process method that we are going to compare, and the difference will be in your P&L to be a loss or gain, okay? So we are going to then having a separation between the cost planified every time we sell against the real. We run some functions, and in a different GL account for your standard costing, we give you the differences from the plan to the real. So don't worry, and we can train your accountants to do that. With FIFO, doesn't happen exactly the same. FIFO is just going to then create, and every time the vendor is going to, the vendor increases the cost of the components always, right? So we are going to use that real cost that I have, look at this, in the unit cost, and then you need, because this will be actually variable even for any given sale, okay? So it will be dynamic because the vendor is going to be increasing the cost. Then I will need to come and see the unit price value to continue measure the unit cost, measure my profit maybe on a monthly basis at most, right? Come and verify that my profit is okay, 58.71. And this unit cost, by the way, is the average of this July period, okay? So just for you to understand, FIFO is according to the actual cost. The vendors are going to then increase the cost all the time, and Business Central is going to record that for you, so you can always work with the real costing process, okay? Not the standard, which is just planified. Okay, so just to mention, these are different characteristics to a normal item, but in the end, to the real items happens the same, okay? Okay, you can just go with FIFO. Your vendors are going to increase the cost all the time, so you need to verify your prices. That will be okay. The standard functions then will be only for you to have an actual references, because this will be more complex to calculate the cost. Nothing else. Sorry. So let's go and verify how we purchase and supply this item, and then how then we assemble it then to be able to sell it. It will be sort of, so to speak, a little bit more complex, but in the end, very easy actually to do it for our company. If you want to prepare kits, I'm going to work and prepare a purchase order. Since I'm the administrator, actually I can do everything. I will be designing items, I will be preparing the purchase, I'm going to receive it, and so forth, right? So the purchase order, when I create it, I'm going to click on new. The purchase order gives me then the option to include any given vendor from the actual list, which I'm going to just select. The Wild Morning Porters is my favorite vendor. So, okay, I will be making the decision with him. He gives me the best cost, and so forth. So he offers me then the solar system in the line section. So for any given purchase, I will just include the complete solar system. Okay, very good. Since I'm going to be the purchaser, now I'm going to make a decision with him. That will be quite important. Okay, it depends on the process, how you follow it. But sometimes you can find a vendor, maybe in China, maybe, that will be actually selling you this item, and it will be so cheap that it will be good to actually buy it already with all the components, okay? Maybe with if you are buying and selling chairs, furniture will be exactly the same. So you're going to be saving some assembly cost. But you need to remember what will be the cost to actually assemble the complete solar system. In this case, and for this scenario, my decision was just to actually go and purchase the components instead, and I'm going to be assembling them. So I have here the complete solar system. What I want to purchase from Wild Morning Porters vendor are actually the components. This vendor could offer the complete solar system already assembled, or maybe I just can purchase the component and get a better cost. Since my personnel is already trained, I will then run a function that we call explode bomb. When I actually just do so, I'm going to then complete and retrieve as well other component that we call dimensions. So to speak, to measure from which area I'm going to be then making these expenditures. Maybe it's the warehouse actually, or the manufacturing department, and so forth. That's what we call the dimensions. I'm not going to use it for now, because that will be for another process, right? But look at this. First of all, the structure was copied to the actual purchase order instead. So the complete solar system kit was added, is the title of my actual component, and was added aligned as a component. Here in our purchase order, you can use the command to add this and continue to edit. Okay, this is urgent. Why not? Very good. Just a comment on simple plain text. Second, I'm gonna get the item that where I'm going to need the actual bill of materials just copy pasted from the actual item that I designed to the actual purchase orders, because there is no way that a purchaser can remember all of that. That's why we're going to need this function oftenly when we actually prepare kits. So it's just an additional step, right? And this function already exists because as well, we are going to now present all this structure, except for Catherine. This is my internal resource. This is our warehouse clerk, and I'm not going to purchase that. You could do so. Look at this. We can purchase our resource, but I know that Catherine was added in the bill of materials, but it's not going to be actually really purchased. So not for now. Anyway, I have here all the different four components that I need to assemble my item, and these need to be then included here, because if any of these components is not okay in order to prepare then the actual item, okay, I'm then going to be then missing then the actual complete assembly that I need to have. And just so to speak, if you as well have issues with the items, because you are going to be creating your own items, your own kits, and you can create a classification of items. Let me show you. And then this is the item 1017, 1016, and so forth. These are my internal numbers, but sometimes the vendors doesn't actually, and they don't have to know why I have this item series for my own internal items. You can add what we call the item reference number, which is the vendor item number. So as well, this vendor is giving me this information and he sells me all of these items, right? So I have the complete catalog of the items that this vendor offers to me. So why not to verify, and I can just check the reference number, or in other words, vendor item numbers. And as well, he offers me the same item in black, brown, gray, and so forth, different units of measures, packs, pieces, bottles, and so forth, right? This is very important sometimes for you purchasers. So how do you add this information as well to the purchase now that you are working with this? Okay, I'm going to open now another item card for these solar wafers, where I'm going to just add that, or I'm going to review exactly that number. Okay, look at this. This is one of the components that I will be purchasing. Let's verify now with the vendor. Make your negotiation for each component. Okay, so your vendor might offer different unit of measure, different item references as well, from where I can see that I have the vendor item number that is called SOL00001. Please add it to your design of every component. I want this to be super fast, and I strongly then I really recommend to add that. I have been in the supply chain. We're gonna be managing different components. I want all of them, and I want to be sure that we get it. And then the barcode. The barcode sometimes help us then to be able to then scan them. We can actually in the warehouse then connect some scanners. And here's the barcode for the single pack. Remember that. And as well, we have different units of measures, because I purchase in packs, but I sell and I use the item. I need to break the pack in order to get one piece for my assembly process. Remember that. Okay, and I'm explaining this because we're going to go in a moment to the assembly procedure. But the idea is first just to supply, and since I was able then to identify the items, let's just verify the quantities suggested, okay? And then I'm going to get the direct unit cost. From here, you will be negotiating every component and so forth, right? That's your work, and that won't be then touched unless, but normally, look at what happened. Suddenly the vendor is telling you, nope, one of your actually components is going to increase the cost. Now this the previous cost of this item was 200. Now it's going to cost you 300. Sometimes this happens, right? So that will be affecting then in the end the profit of my kit. Let's pay attention to that. And from here, what I will be doing, let's say I finish my negotiation, I'm going to send this, and I have to my vendor. So I have, and I can send it immediately. We have integration, by the way, with Outlook and other apps. So this will be immediately sent to the actual email of the vendor coming from the vendor card, right? So nothing else. This will be sent to wildwordimporters@contasa.com, Toby Road, and as well, just to mention, we have request approvals. Okay, sometimes this happens. So the process is in the end is going, well, I have no approval workflow set up here, but we can send it to approval. It's before going to the vendor internally, can be just reviewed, just to check if maybe your costs were correct or no, and if your your manager accepts your purchase and so forth. The second step is just to receive the items. In Business Central, we can just receive the items, and especially for this type of processes. You will sometimes, if we are importing items, we don't have the time to receive the invoice. We don't have the time to actually call to the vendor if they can send all the documentation for the importing procedures and so forth. But at least the items are physically there. At least they are maybe in transit, they are going to arrive, and we can receive them just to start selling. So we have separated the reception and the invoicing process. This is a very natural process here at Business Central that will be quite interesting to actually use right now. So I will be having all my components behind the scene, the warehouse clerk actually scanning the reception area, all of these items with the barcodes and the identifiers and everything that I have just mentioned. And then we're going to get in the actual purchase order, the quantity that was just received, 10, 5, 20 units. Very, very good. This might be super important right now because if any of this item is missing, you might not be able to prepare your kit, okay? And then later, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, then you're going to be able to then, when you receive the invoice, to then add the actual cost. I'm just saying this because in this very moment, the actual cost will be then just updated once you really invoice, okay? But that will be sometimes separated. The actual process for me is to just really receive the items, nothing else, okay? So I'm just going to invoice anyway because I want to increase the real cost that I was going to be measuring, but the invoice can wait for later. The only criteria and most important thing is just to receive the items to be able to sell, and that's allowed in Business Central. It's not a problem. And then I will be showing you, once we get those items in that warehouse, okay, I will be able to prepare an assembly order, which is actually really easy, which is in the end the conclusion of what I wanted to present today. What is this about? Then once I get my kit design, the component supplied, and giving you some advices that I actually use here and there in order to actually be efficient and be able to then conclude. This is just there for you if you want to implement kits, the easiest of the tasks that you will ever find here in Business Central. We're going to set up the actual assembly functions that we just call the assembly setup. Just to mention is that very easy to prepare. The assembly order, right, depends on one single setup that we just need to do. Here we have one module in Business Central. So you can say, okay, from which location or in which warehouse, in other words, you're going to be assembling, because you need to send the components there, okay? Very good. So this assembly order that I'm about to show actually picks the items from this specific warehouse, okay? And then as well, we can copy what not dimensions and stock out warning. Advise me if any of the components that I'm about to use to prepare my finished product is not there. So I need always, before actually preparing the assembly process, to include that information, okay? Then it's just very simple. We help you with that. But then the assembly order is like this. We just need to indicate there your kit will be in the header. So this is the header of the actual assembly order. It's the assembly order A00002. From here, we just need to add your item that was a kit. Very good. And in the header section, I'm going to indicate that the quantities, how many you're going to be assembling here. I'm going to add them maybe just one for now, one single unit. Business Central is going to review behind the scene how many units you might have. And this is telling me, hey, you have not enough inventory, okay? I actually did this on purpose because yes, we have inventory, but the idea is that Business Central can tell that when something is not okay, what will be the actual quantity that you're gonna need. This is needed in the main warehouse, okay? the gross requirement, the schedule, the current quantity that we have, so you can see which component is missing and so forth, right? So assemble, unit of measures, so you can read item by item and unit, and using, of course, very important, your unit of measure, what actually happened behind the scene to detect them, and as well, if you have substitutes, okay? That's another setup that I actually forgot. But from any given component, you can actually set up, if you want to have another item that you can use actually to complete the assembly process. Let me just go back to the component section in a second to show you then how we work with this, okay? But then it will be then important to start understanding if you actually, whenever you don't have the items, the assembly process is going to actually give you some advices like this one, okay? It will be so important just for you to understand this part, because then in the end, you need to actually come back with your purchasing department, or as have another version of the same bill of materials, and just mention to the system that then in the end, you can have substitutes. So to speak, the idea will be like this. I will be just going to my assembly BOM once again, and then I have the item that had the issue was here. I think this one's still structure. And then look at this. We can just design and prepare substitutions for the item. Here it is. This is my structure. I don't have enough of this, so maybe you can prepare a rack, or go for another item from another vendor. When I prepare kits, I always use this sort of functions. Okay, so you can add here. Let's just have an item. Okay, and you just need to select which one will be from your actual list of inventory, the actual substitute item. Just in case that you go like me, I don't have inventory and things like that, you are going to be able to select any of the items, then just here to be a substitute, and you can use it in your assembly process. So I'm just going to add a random item just to show the configuration, because I would need to create another items for this and purchase them and so forth, right? But here in the end, you can mention if this will be interchangeable. So substitution will be not only in the way that I would need it, but sometimes as well, if I don't have the actual substitute item, let's go back and then interchange if I don't have any of the items, one or another, but I need to sell. That will be then the most important here, just to verify. Okay, so this is then the main idea, right? The main idea of the structure, and then I'm going to need now to add enough inventory. Then just create a purchase order immediately, and to add more items. And it's getting slow. I'm about to finish. I just need to assemble the item. Oh, maybe it sure is slow right now. Okay, finally. And then just select once again very good. And I'm going to need to make a couple of things here, by the way. Oh, it's too slow, it's too slow. What I could do. Let me just push back to my actual process. Maybe this will be faster. I'm going to need to remove one of the components just for this demo, let me explain it. Let me just go to the item, because I don't have enough time to prepare the actual complete process is taking a while. Okay, I'm connecting to a shoe, by the way, but in order to purchase, it runs some basic processes that are taking me a couple of minutes. Okay, so let me just at least prepare the assembly process without one of the components because I'm not going to be able to complete all of that now. Okay, I just have removed one of the components. Since I don't have too much time to purchase, it's taking me maybe some resources in my Azure environment somebody's using currently. I actually sometimes have that. Okay, but now important assembly orders. Let me see if now it works. Okay, the complete solar system, coming back to my assembly order process. Sorry for the delay. Sometimes this happens. And then the quantity that I'm going to add, I'm going to continue then just with the actual process of assembling the item, the quantity, and the quantity to assemble is here, right? So in this case, the assembly order is going to, according to the quantities you are going to then assembling. Remember, in our header section, every assembly order gets a number. You just need to add the item you're about to assemble. And that's it. Then the quantity, once I just added it, is going to then recall all the components from the actual bill of materials to add it and just have it in front of you. Okay, so I have the quantity that I'm going to need per item. Okay, and then the quantity that I'm about to consume of any of these items. Okay, so that's good. I can know then how I'm to use. Okay, so you're gonna discount these physical quantities and the quantity to consume, and then as well the remaining quantity, because we are going to be assembly one by one by one by one, and then the actual assembly order is going to tell you then the remaining quantity that you haven't yet assembled, okay, in this column. So it's a good process. It's going to start telling you how much you have assembled, how much you have consumed, and so forth, and then of course the unit cost. And look at this. This is the actual cost from the last time I purchased. So Business Central is now recalculating in this dynamic world where we are going to be preparing these simple items in the end, but you need to know that Business Central is going to help you to calculate the real cost. So if you want to actually just work with the planified structure, that's super good. But as well, you can work with the real cost, and Business Central helps you calculating all of it. We just give you different type of trainings to then review. The complex structure here will be on the unit cost calculation, actually, the cost analysis. But once you understand that, we can just implement it and we can give you some insights. So as well, look at this, number of substitutes will be here. So why not to check if in this case, this is telling you just in case you have an issue with any of the items. In this case, you remember the steel solid structure has then, but in this case, I have enough inventory. I will be then just working. Let me just give you another process from here. If you manage WMS, you can actually create your inventory movements or pickings to take from any given shelf these components and bring it to your assembly area. From here as well, you can print the order if you don't have handhelds. If you are working in the basic warehouse, you are going to need anyway a report. So you're a warehouse clerk, you print this report so they can actually go with this printed version of the assembly a bill of materials. They're going to need to verify, okay, for the complete solar system kit, I'm going to need the quantity to assemble 5. Very good. So the quantity to consume will be here. This can even indicate you in which bin codes these items might be located as well. And you then provide this or hand this to the warehouse clerk so they can actually write then the quantity that they have picked and the quantity that they consume. And then you have this for your own archive. Very good. That would be more or less the idea. Then in the end, if you have handhelds, we can actually present the same information to the handheld so they can go and scan and do that very easily. Either if it's a tablet or a mobile, not really recommended. I would strongly recommend to use a real handheld, which is much more faster and can actually, you can rely on that if you are in a dirty environment and so forth. And then from here, you can actually update your unit cost. Okay, because remember that your vendors actually increase the cost in the end, right? And of course, show the availability so you can see whenever you have items or not and so forth, and continue just with the actual process, okay? And this telling me, okay, you don't have sufficient inventory, okay, I cannot purchase order for that, but anyway, the result will be shown like this, okay? The steel solar, let me show. Complete solar system kit 50 watts currently has at least one quantity on hand. Okay, so I actually previously prepared one of these assembly orders. Their result will be just exactly like this. When you have your physical quantities, they will be shown. If they were invoiced as well, they will be shown. And this is going to tell you that this came from an assembly output. Okay, very important because we are going to need to read whether you purchase an item or whether you assembly. Okay, and from here as well, the actual quantity, the actual unit cost coming from the purchase order, not from the planified, all right? Created from that single unit entry, the unit cost was 680, and the actual cost, look at this, was 680. So as well, in this cost amount actual, just to finish, we could use the real cost, which will be including the real cost price when you purchase, coming from the vendors, or this actual cost could come as well from the standard cost that we calculate them. We calculated, okay, 1,364. But then what we are going to do behind the scene in the accounting module, so to speak, we're going to be measuring the difference between your plan against the real. Look at this. This was in our favor by a lot. And then we're going to be posting the differences into specific GL accounts when we actually do the cost analysis with the accountant, where they want to have this difference placed, because in the end, this was not, how can we say it, if we do not understand the cost accounting. This is not real, 1,364. What I want is to get this and to prepare my profit analysis. The 680 was the cost for my vendors, okay? And once then that's just reviewed, then you can continue and update your unit price, or just continue using the calculations coming from Business Central that helps you to calculate once again the cost that you have here, and you can reuse once again the actual assembly BOM. I know that some items increase the cost, so why not to verify what happened with the planification, with the planned cost when it applies, calculate the standard cost once again, and so forth. Now my cost was increased. So you can get then by using the system, we know that the vendors are increasing the cost, okay, at least because I had then an increase, then the planified cost will be like this, okay? So you can use then the functions of the standard cost, but in the end, you can work with the planified cost or with the real cost coming from the vendors. It's up to you, but then later in the end, we just give you the analysis to compare the planified against the real. And that is coming from the assembly process, the most basic process to prepare a bill of materials, right? And from here, we could just go and continue learning more for more sophisticated assembly processes, or that at some point will be a real manufacturing, you get it? But this will be just helping us just to take some items and sell and assemble them and then sell them as one single finished product, like my complete solar system kit. Okay, so thank you very much. This is all for today. If you have questions, please let me know. As well, you can contact me at noe.wellman@optimus.guru. Okay, so just to receive suggestions about topics, requirements that you might have. If you have an idea to implement, we can verify functionality and show it in the webinar, which is most of the time how I prepared my topics, right? And then how then we show you to use Business Central, how it makes our life easier. Okay, and with our experience, then we can help you to do or mainly all these different processes. And look at this, we were very lucky because this assured somebody disconnected my session. So right in time. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Thank you very much for your time and see you then next week.